A little over a year ago, I noticed there was a story going on in AEW that had an insane level of detail and emotion, but no one had covered it fully in depth on YouTube. So I decided to take it upon myself to break down the story of one Hangman Adam Page, and thus this channel as it's known today was born. Now, I'm not going to insult anyone's intelligence here. This is the fourth part of a series of videos I've put out. To understand where we're at now, I highly encourage you guys to check out my previous 3 videos on this topic. The story of Hangman Adam Page is a multi-year arc that began on day 1 of AEW's inception. This is the protagonist of our entire story of all AEW, and the primary antagonists in this story are not the Elite, believe it or not, no, but the demons of Hangman Adam Page. A man who expected the world of himself and failed, losing his friends and his self-belief in the process. But here we are, November 2021, and the culmination of the best long-term story in pro wrestling has finally paid off. A very human story of overcoming self-doubt, a story of believing in yourself, a one-of-a-kind arc capped off by a career-defining moment. This is Tranquilo Club, and this is, at long last, the multi-year triumph of Hangman Adam Page. It's been a long time since we covered this story. A lot of you have been asking for an update for quite some time, but I decided it was best to cap off this series once the story paid off. So we last left off with the calculated arc of Kenny Omega. This was before he even became AEW World Champion. I've covered Kenny Omega's matches as champion in multiple videos throughout his reign, but for journalistic integrity's sake, I'll quickly recap Omega's arc as champion. Kenny Omega abandoned Hangman after losing the tag titles to FTR and even defeated Hangman in the World Title Eliminator Tournament final to become #1 contender. Of course, he would defeat Moxley at Winter is Coming, turning heel in the process and kick-starting a dominant reign. Omega is the longest reigning world champion in AEW history. As an in-ring worker, he adapted to his opponent's style. With 6 successful defenses, Omega cemented his spot as the ultimate final boss in AEW, though his matches always came with help from the Elite and Don Callis. Meanwhile, Hangman Page was left without any support, without any friends after Omega abandoned him. If you recall in the second video of this series, Hangman tried to right his wrongs with the Elite when it was far too late. Kenny and the Bucks had reached the point of no return. They walked down a dark path that they're still on to this day. But Hangman found allies in an unlikely place. If you recall, back in late 2019, early 2020, when Hangman was feeling lost, the Brody Lee-led Dark Order was trying to recruit him, but Hangman blew them off, citing not wanting to join a cult as a reason. But despite Hangman's best efforts to not be a part of a group again after his experience with the Elite and FTR, he couldn't stay away from the Dark Order no matter how hard he tried. They stood and fought together directly after the passing of Brody Lee, which formed a bond between both sides. Although the Dark Order would continue to ask Hangman to become an official member, he decided that fighting alongside them meant more than being labeled an official member. When Hangman was beefing with the 500,000 members of the Hardy family office, the Dark Order was there to save him at every turn. On being the Elite, Hangman and the Dark Order became the Big Odd Happy Family. In the build to Double or Nothing 2021, Hangman was at the top spot in the rankings, which made a clash with Omega inevitable. However, Hangman would suffer a shock defeat to Brian Cage on an episode of Dynamite, which would see him fall down the rankings. It was here where Hangman entered a short feud with Team Taz, where he again had support from the Dark Order to even the odds. Page would open up the first pay-per-view with a full crowd in over a year when he defeated Brian Cage, avenging his loss from a few weeks earlier. After Double or Nothing, Hangman saw himself climb his way up the rankings once more, but this time it was for real. But that's not how Hangman saw it. Despite sitting in the #1 spot, Hangman was actively avoiding Kenny Omega, even abstaining from saying his name. Adam Page was still full of self-doubt, scared of failing, scared of disappointing friends once again. But the Dark Order gave him what no one else had in AEW so far: support. The Dark Order had experienced very real heartbreak themselves when they lost Brody Lee. After Brody's passing, we saw them embracing friendship, embracing Hangman. These two sides found each other when they needed it most, and that's why Dark Order pushed for Adam to no longer be afraid, to no longer doubt himself. They pushed Page to confront Kenny Omega, and because for the first time in his AEW career he had belief from friends, Hangman began to believe just a little in himself. So when Omega and Hangman came face to face for the first time in 8 months at Road Rager, Hangman went in full of confidence, and Omega was now the one with doubt. However, since Omega was the champion, he still had all the leverage in the world. He used this to his advantage and told Hangman that if he wants his title shot, he and the Dark Order would need to defeat Omega and the Elite in a 5v5 elimination tag match. The catch being that if Hangman and Dark Order lost, he would have to relinquish his shot at the world title along with the Dark Order with their tag title shot. The fight was on. This time Hangman had people fighting not for him, but alongside him, and it led to one of the best entrances in AEW history when Hangman Adam Page and the Dark Order made their way to the ring as a collective unit at Fight for the Fallen. For the first time, Hangman belonged, and he felt like the biggest thing in AEW because of it. However, this moment of pure bliss would be short-lived as Page and the Dark Order would end up falling short, relinquishing their title shots in the process. Not only was Hangman defeated, but so was the crowd. Hangman lasted until the very end, but he was outnumbered by Kenny Omega and Nick Jackson and their underhanded tactics. He went down fighting. This was a gut punch. It was supposed to be Hangman's moment, but the Elite took it away from Hangman, from the Dark Order, from all of us. This hit Adam Page harder than anyone else though. He felt responsible for the loss, for costing himself and his new friends a shot at gold in AEW. Therefore, he chose to split away from them and face the Elite on his own. The big difference here was, the Dark Order was actually respecting Hangman's wishes, a completely different response from them compared to the Elite when Hangman chose to leave them. The week after Fight for the Fallen, Hangman would be interrupted during an in-ring interview by the Elite. Omega called Page a loser and told Hangman that he's not on the level of the Elite. A brawl ensued, but Hangman was outnumbered. Members of the Dark Order came out of the tunnel before they were stopped by Evil Uno, who demanded that they respected Hangman's wishes and not get involved any longer. A BTE trigger on Hangman would end the segment, and it would write him off TV for the next couple of months as Page and his wife were expecting the birth of their child very soon. For 2 months, the protagonist of AEW went missing, all while the promotion was exploding in popularity with the arrivals of top-tier talent like CM Punk, Bryan Danielson, and Adam Cole. And while all of that was insanely cool, we all knew that there was only one man who was ever going to beat Omega for the title. It was announced that a casino ladder match to earn a shot at the AEW World title would take place on the Dynamite 2nd anniversary show, and that meant a Joker would be involved. The match was stacked with talent: Moxley, Pac, Andrade, Archer, Orange Cassidy, and Matt Hardy for some reason, but it was the Joker who stole the headlines. Hangman Adam Page made his long-awaited return and came back ready to conquer his demons. After some insane ass-kicking from our favorite anxious millennial cowboy, he climbed the ladder and won the match. The redemption arc officially kicked into full gear. The match was set: Kenny Omega versus Hangman Page for the AEW World title at Full Gear, a match years in the making. The following week, Hangman would speak to us from the heart. He talked about how he came into AEW wanting to be the first ever AEW World Champion and how he failed. He talked about how losing his friends made him lose himself, but the support of true friends helped him get back on his feet. Hangman mentioned that the only thing he never lost was the support of the crowd. The cowboy shit chants grew louder every week, and he mentioned that when they were at their absolute loudest, he had the balls to step away to be there for the birth of his son. That's cowboy shit. Hangman had a new perspective this time around. He thanked the crowd for always believing in him because for the first time, he now believes in himself too. He didn't promise a win at Full Gear, but he did promise that we would get cowboy shit. An excellent babyface promo that made us feel validated for cheering on Hangman for the past 2.5 years. A story of fan support actually leading to the development of a character shouldn't be a novel concept, but in modern American wrestling it is. Hangman had found the one thing he was lacking his entire AEW run: self-belief. And he found it after finding friends, after the continued support from the audience, and after the birth of his son. A character doesn't get more human than this in pro wrestling. Meanwhile, the Elite and Kenny Omega didn't seem to take Hangman seriously. Omega would cut a promo basically disregarding Hangman as he always had. But what the Elite and Omega didn't expect was for Adam Page to crash their Halloween-themed match against Hangman's friends, the Dark Order. The Elite were having a little too much fun beating down the Dark Order, but they didn't even notice Hangman had taken Cutler's spot as the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. Page would attack Matt Jackson and help Dark Order get the big win to close out the show. A message was sent. The following week, Omega would face Alan Angels of the Dark Order. After picking up the win, Omega would continue to attack Angels until Hangman made the save, nearly hitting Omega with the Buckshot Lariat. Page would pick up the AEW World title left in the ring and tell Omega that he has 10 days left. Hangman was finally confident enough to not only face Omega, but to play some mind games like him as well. This all led to our final stop before Full Gear, the contract signing. Kenny Omega continued to play mind games with Page. He brought up their time together and said Hangman could have been on Kenny's level if it weren't for his insecurities. Hangman responded by calling out Omega's insecurities when it came to the Golden Lovers. Hangman made it clear he was no longer afraid or full of doubt, and Omega was going to face a fully confident Hangman this time around as opposed to their match at Full Gear 1 year ago. Omega told Hangman he misunderstood and conned Page into shaking his hand one last time before Don Callis, who was posing as a cameraman, attacked Page and left him bloodied. Omega would sign the contract with Hangman's blood, adding insult to injury. Oh, and one more thing. On the Rampage the night before Full Gear, Hangman apologized to the Young Bucks. He said they were even, considering they both cost each other a title shot. Hangman did warn the Bucks to not get involved in his title match against Kenny or otherwise he would ruin them, obviously planting seeds for the future. Hangman made his entrance at Full Gear after a sick pre-recorded video and got the heroes welcome. Omega came out with the One-Winged Angel gear. This instantly had the big fight feel. There was chops to start the match, Hangman is actually confident, and then we have Don Callis getting involved early on. Omega is distracting the referee a lot so Callis can take advantage of the situation. After a while, Omega starts to get cocky and he starts dominating. He hits a sunset flip powerbomb, a snapdragon suplex on the apron. Hangman responds by hitting an avalanche blockbuster and a dive off the turnbuckle to the outside through the ring announcer table. Hangman tries for the buckshot, but Omega drops, so Hangman decides to go for a V-trigger instead. Omega gets up, Hangman reads this, and then he hits a sick combo. He sets up once more for the buckshot, but Omega ends up shielding himself with the ref, and Hangman hits him instead. So now there's no ref, and we're getting all these crazy shenanigans. Don Callis and Omega try to hit Hangman with the belt, but Hangman evades, and he hits a deadeye on Omega, and he goes for the pin. That's when Aubrey Edwards comes out running and counts a crazy near fall. Page and Omega go back and forth until Omega hits him with multiple knee strikes and then a V-trigger. Omega is frustrated and kicking Hangman, but Hangman does not give up and he hits a lariat. Both men are down and there's loud AEW chants. Young Bucks come down to the ring. Hangman goes for a buckshot, but Omega hits a V-trigger. He tries the One-Winged Angel, but Hangman counters and hits a One-Winged Angel of his own. But of course, Omega kicks out. Hangman hits the apron and he makes eye contact with the Young Bucks. He hits Omega with a buckshot lariat from behind. Page goes out to the apron again and makes eye contact with Matt Jackson, who then nods at Hangman in approval. Hangman hits a clean buckshot lariat on Omega and gets the win. All of his demons conquered, all of his insecurities no longer holding him down, and in an ironic twist of fate with the Young Bucks in his corner. The same Young Bucks who were at ringside for all of Kenny's matches, but who refused to be there for Hangman's match against Jericho at All Out 2019 for the AEW World title. We came full circle. And before the show ended, Hangman's friends, the Dark Order, walked out to celebrate with him. The same friends who helped him conquer all his demons, the same friends who let him get to this moment. He was offered a beer by them, but he didn't even want that. He chose to hug them before they lifted him on their shoulders in a beautiful image to end the show. This is how you pay off a story with a satisfying ending. On day one, Adam Page came into AEW and said he wanted to be the first ever AEW World Champion, but he failed. And when he failed, he lost everything. He had to work his way up back from the bottom, and we were all there to cheer him on during his rise up to the top again. We love the anxious millennial cowboy because he's relatable. He has insecurities, he has faults, and he's not afraid to admit that he does. And it's okay that he has his faults because he can work through them because he has friends who helped him get through it. After those 2 years of self-doubt, self-loathing, Hangman finally became what he wanted to be, the AEW World Champion, and he did it by defeating the man who will always be associated with his career, Kenny Omega, the big final boss of AEW. The two friends who didn't want it to lead to this, but they both knew it had to lead to this because both men wanted to be at the top of the mountain. Hangman was lost when he left the Elite, but he knew it was a decision he had to make because he wasn't happy there. And while in the short term it seemed like it affected him negatively, the choice ended up being the correct one because now he's at the top of AEW. He's the champion, he's the guy, and with that, this multi-year long story has come to an end. Whether Hangman and the other members of the Elite can ever be friends again remains to be seen, but they do say that time heals all wounds. Maybe the Young Bucks gave him that nod of approval for a reason, because they knew this was inevitable. They knew AEW is Hangman's story. This is his story and he's the protagonist. The era of larger-than-life characters worked because it was a product of its time. In this day and age, we need something to relate to. We need something to sink our teeth into. And that's why everybody loves Hangman Adam Page, because we can all relate to him. A win for him was a win for everybody, because we had the time to grow with Hangman as a character for over 2 years. We got to know him, we got to relate to him, we got the chance to care for him. This is the end of one of the best long-term arcs in professional wrestling history. From the beginning, where Hangman bit off more than he could chew and he fell to rock bottom, to the middle where Hangman was lost and trying to find his way, trying to find friends and finally finding the right friends, to the triumphant end where he finally overcame all his obstacles, where he finally met his day one goal of becoming AEW World Champion. A clear beginning, middle, and end of a character arc. That's character development. And this, my friends, has been the Hangman Adam Page saga.